for safety for 10 years, so you just never know. It's always the unexpected thing happens. A car comes flying around a corner or anything, so you gotta go safety first with whatever we're doing. Now we're looking here at your map at Summit Point. You'll notice the railroad tracks coming through Summit Point. There they are. Except this is not a functional railroad in the summer of 1864. This stretches the railroad coming down the Winchester line from Winchester to Harper's Ferry that Jackson tore up earlier in the war, carried off a lot of the rails, and it's here in disrepair. Most of the rails and ties are gone and things. But behind you, the stone building behind you, is the depot, warehouse, storage place that was used to store goods when they would be unloaded from the train or that were waiting to be loaded onto the train. Back in the days when Summit Point was a vibrant stop, all the farmers would bring their wares here, and so this was a little economic hub. The railroad is why Summit Point here becomes important. Now, the brick house across the street is where the B&O Railroad employee, he was like the station master here. That's where. There was also another depot building here at the time that is no longer here. But he lived in that house. There are sketches in the Taylor sketchbook of that house with James Harrison Wilson. That's his headquarters. He was staying behind me. You'll see a clump of trees off in the distance as the road disappears. Behind there is another home where he stayed, and that had been his formal residence headquarters. But once the action starts on the 21st of August, he'll go over there to the Granham House, and that will be his headquarters. Actually, it's more outside, where he's on the porch, on his horse, and that's where he's organizing the defense of Summit Point. Wilson does a good job, and you like to talk about him. He's kind of growing into his role as a division commander in cavalry. He spent most of his time in the war as a staff officer, and he had gained the attention of Grant, and Grant's going to bring him in as a division commander with Sheridan's cavalry at the beginning of the 1864 campaigns. And it's going to disrupt some things. Custer didn't like him, but Wilson was junior to him, so they had to move Custer to another division in order to give Wilson. It also creates a precarious situation for Sheridan because Sheridan and Wilson were both guys that Grant brought in. And one thing that's important to understand, and I hear this repeated all the time, is that, oh, Grant and Sheridan were buddies from the West. They didn't serve together very long. Sheridan was Army of the Cumberland. Grant was Army of the Tennessee and was out in Vicksburg. Completely different campaigns. The only thing that Grant saw of Sheridan was during the Missionary Ridge, when the Army of the Cumberland surges up Mission Ridge and sweeps Braxton Bragg's army off of it. He saw one thing. He saw Sheridan organizing the troops that he could and pushing on over the other side of the ridge aggressively. He would be repelled by a rear guard, but it was that caught Grant's attention, and that going for the jugular and pushing ahead is why they came here. So Sheridan, again, as I said, it was very lackluster tenure as the cavalry corps. There was a couple of bright spots there, but on the whole, nothing spectacular. So again, he's not Sheridan the Inevitable, as one of his biographers entitled it. It was nothing inevitable about him being in command out here. But he's taking this command seriously, and he's understanding the needs of the administration politically and from a public relations aspect, as well as the military side of the assignment. Wilson, on the other hand, is another guy from Grant, and during a lot of Sheridan's tenure with the main army in Eastern Virginia in 1864, Wilson's going to be less than satisfactory. But Sheridan finds himself in a situation where I think he's not sure what to do about it because he knows Wilson. Wilson is actually closer, probably has a closer personal relationship with Grant than what Sheridan had. So there. But Wilson comes out here and does a stellar rear guard effort at Summit Point and disrupts the timing of Confederate operations. Any questions on Summit Point? All right. Well, we're going to just to wrap this up here. Losses on both sides, about 50, 60 men in Anderson's division that's here. Wilson, about the same on his side. So relatively low casualties. There'll be significantly more casualties over at our next tour stop. So from this point, we're going to take a break. A bathroom break will be our next bus stop, and we'll be heading over to a sheets outside of Charlestown.
Fighting at the sheets.
Do you have a question?
Did you say they were all the cavalry had 6-shooters?
All of Wilson's division is armed. There will be men in Averell's division, Dufier's division, and Merritt's who will maintain regular carbines.
Okay.
Did the Confederates pick up these Spencers when they found them on the field after people were killed? Did they use
They
them?
would on occasion, but then they have a resupply effort of ammunition. So I will give you an example. On the August 17th rear guard action outside of Winchester, one of the Marylanders pick up some of the Spencer repeaters, and they use them in that immediate action there. But you know they
didn't have bullets.
Probably throw them in a wagon and wait till the next time they're able to come across some ammunition.
So the right ammunition.
All right, well, we're gonna head out. Oh, wait, we'll talk and walk.
Regarding artillery movement, I always hear the term limbered and unlimbered, which I get very confused as to what it's.
Limbered means basically you've got that gun hooked up to the wagon being pulled by the horses and it's ready to move. Unlimbered is that gun down on the ground in position ready for action. So we say we're going to limber the guns. That's what we do when we're moving them. Bringing them out.